Hi, my name is Rachel, and I will be your teacher for Painting with Pirates. Before we get started, I'll tell you a little bit about me. I graduated from Southwestern in 2014 with a degree in theater. After graduation, I managed a sip and paint studio here in Georgetown. After leaving there, I opened a digital marketing company, again, here in Georgetown, and now I'm concentrating on illustrating and writing children's picture books. It was such an honor to have been asked to host Painting with Pirates. I hope you enjoy. Let's get started. You'll need a canvas, acrylic paint, a pencil, a few paintbrushes. Now, if you purchase the paintbrushes that were included in the Amazon link, I will tell you which paintbrush I'm using by its number and by the shape of it. Now, if you're using your own paintbrushes, that's absolutely fine. Just use whatever paintbrush you love best. I'm also going to be using a paint palette to mix paint with some water. And I like using a dish towel, an old dish towel, to wipe my paintbrushes off, but you could use a paper towel instead. So let's take a look at our painting real quick. The first step that we're going to do is paint the entire background with blue and white to create the sky. Then once that's dried, we're going to draw simple shapes to create the chapel. So if you look, there's a very simple rectangle right here, a triangle here, another really long skinny rectangle here, and then tiny rectangles inside and up here. The doors are rectangles, and then these are rectangles with just one curved side. The trees, we'll go over the branches, how to draw the branches, and then the little fluff up here. And then of course down here is just the black concrete. So to paint the blue sky, I am going to use the phthalo blue and white. I'll put them together on my mixing tray. Now, like I said before, this paint goes a long way. So I'm just going to start out with a little bit at first. I'm going to get my biggest paintbrush. It's the number 16 rounded on all sides paintbrush. I'll go ahead and dip my paintbrush in the water and then put some of the water on my canvas. Then I'll come over here and grab some white. And very messily, very messily, I'm going to add some paint to my canvas. This is a very organic way of painting. We're just slapping paint onto the background of our canvas. You can make your sky really dark blue by adding more blue than white, or you can just add a little hint of blue every now and then on top of your white paint. Just depends on what type of sky you want to see. Now, this area that I'm working on right now, I've used a lot of water. So this is a very wet technique. Now, I'm going to dry my paintbrush very well. I'm going to grab a good amount of blue, and down here, I'm going to show you a more dry brush technique, kind of mixing on the canvas rather than on the paint palette. So you'll see the difference between a dry brush technique down here and a wet brush technique up there. I'm going to work this paint just a little bit more. I want my background to be very dark blue. So then I can go back in and add a few globs of white to be my clouds. Now, the more you mix on this canvas, I'm going to show you here, the more you mix on it, the less texture you're going to get. So if you're just working this one spot over and over again, you're going to get this lovely shade of blue, which is fine. If you just want one color as your background, that works perfectly well. You paint whatever you like to paint. So again, this is very wet, this is very dry, and this is really working the paint onto your canvas. I'm going to add a little bit. I used more paint than I thought I would. I'm going to add a little bit more white. Okay, and I'm going to come back into this area because I like more texture in my paint. I'm just going to put a few drops of white. Now, let's say you've worked your paint, you don't like what you're seeing, not to worry. Let your paint dry, take it to a hair dryer and let the acrylic dry. Acrylic is great to paint on top of because it turns into like a type of plastic, really, and you can paint right on top of it. So if you're looking at your sky and you're thinking, oh, this is just not working for me, go dry it, get some more paint and start over again. The great thing about acrylic is it's really hard to mess up with acrylic. You'll notice my paintbrush stroke, what I'm doing is actually really noisy. You know, I'm not just going up and down painting the entire canvas. I'm kind of pushing the paint into these little textures that the canvas has given me. And I'm not shy about how much paint I'm getting either. I mean, you can see how much paint I have on this paintbrush. As I work my way around the canvas, I am going to turn it on its side and put a bit of paint on the edges. That way later on, I don't have to purchase a frame for it to look finished. This is called a gallery wrap. If you want to take a moment, you can put in the comments, what year did you graduate from Southwestern? Remember, if you want to play around with the different painting techniques, you can add more water, use less water. You can really rub it into your canvas or smash the painting on the canvas like I'm doing. I really love painting backgrounds because you don't really have to think about it. You just kind of let the paint go wherever it wants to go. This is definitely not the step that should get you frustrated. If you ever feel frustrated at any point, just walk away, go look outside for a little bit, go get a bit of inspiration, and then come back to it. I would suggest that if you do happen to get a bit frustrated over the painting today, just keep going. There is this thing with painting that you reach this real awkward point where it doesn't look great, it doesn't look terrible, but you're just not happy with it as the artist. Try your best to push through that feeling of, oh, this is so awkward and it's not looking the way I wanted it to look and it doesn't look like theirs or it doesn't look like hers or his. Just keep painting. Just keep putting paint onto your canvas and working through that awkward transition from unfinished painting to complete. going to worry too much about down here because I know that I'll be covering it soon. I'm not quite sure how far up I'm going to go with my concrete black sidewalk part of the painting. So I'm just not going to worry about this bottom yet because I know that I'm going to be painting black on top of it later. I really love this area that's nice and white. I love this area that's nice and dark. It brings in that depth. In the comments, go ahead and let us know what was your major, and then if you had a minor, what was your minor? Okay, we should just be getting finished with our background. We need to let it dry. Now, acrylic is great at drying very fast, but in the meantime, let's check in and see how our pirate friends are doing.
Okay, Scallywag, we're late.
Don't call me a scallywag.
Well, you are. Hang on.
And that wench Rachel's already started.
Jeez,
Oh,
the brush.
oh,
the
paint.
brush.
Just get some paint.
Go.
Let's do that. Okay, go.
Go.
What do we paint again?
Chapel.
Chapel. Captain Jim Wilson, I love ya. Love you like a brother.
Vicky Maiden.
Maiden.
Ooh, Matey.
Not for many a year. Don't wait. I don't want to see what you're doing.
I don't
And
want you to
look at
see.
mine.
This is good.
No, because this is going to be
This will be the
brilliant.
masterpiece.
You know what I learned my Scottish?
Where did you learn it? On the ship?
No. Well, that's not a bad place. No. But where I did it was I watched the Outlander show. It's got this guy Jamie on it.
Yeah.
He's a hottie with the body.
I think it's looking good. And you? Are you doing
No,
good?
mine's excellent. I'm here
Hello.
to
Let's see
tell you.
what
But I don't know what to
let's
do.
see what she's doing. Well, we need to get back and
Back
get
to the
directions.
wench. Rachel.
They look like they're having way too much fun. Okay, let's get on with our sketch. Now I'm going to turn this light on. So let's start on the sketch of the chapel. Like I said before, if you notice, there are these very simple shapes. A rectangle here, a big, long, skinny rectangle here, triangle here, and then these are rectangles. It's just one side is curved. This one too, and that one. And then we have rectangles in here, smaller ones. Don't worry with all these details on top. Just look at the image that's just below it. Just these simple shapes. So I want to put this sketch onto here. I'm going to try to eyeball the center of my canvas. This is not a science, this is not math. We're not using a ruler. We're just going to eyeball the center of our canvas and make a nice little dot. This is going to get painted over, so it's okay to put some pencil on there. So this is the roundabout area of the center of my canvas. If I do that to this canvas, it lies right about there on top of my building. So one of the first lines that I can get to is this one. I'm going to go ahead and plop this line down on here. It's just a little ways from my center. So it's just a little ways from my center. I'm going to plop a line right there. Again, this is not science. We're not using a ruler, and that's okay. We don't want this to be perfect. So now I'm gonna make just a rough rectangle right here. I can always change this shape later. So here's the main part of our chapel right here. It's gonna live there. Now next to it is our real skinny part of the chapel. The part of the chapel that went on a diet. There we go. I want to leave space up here for these little bits. So I'm just gonna, again, this is real messy. Do not take too much time laying down these nice little clean lines. It's okay. We're gonna paint on top of this. We just want to know where our chapel's going to live. So here's my basic shapes. I have them down. I have the bottom. And then we're going to put our triangle on top of this one. And we're also going to put the big opening up here. And And then I'll go ahead and I'll kind of eyeball where my windows are gonna go. The big window right here kind of goes somewhere in the middle over here. See there. And then down here, here's the tricky part. Here's the tricky part, this door. The door does not go at the bottom of our horizon line. It actually goes a little bit up because there's these steps here. So I'm gonna add the steps, 1, 2, 3, just 3 horizontal lines. And then I'll make the shape of our door. There is a window on top of that door as well. And then we put all of that, all of this content that we just drew, we put it inside. Now, I don't normally go over this with a pen, but I'm going to go over it with a pen one more time, just so that you can see it a little bit better. So let me grab a pen. I would suggest y'all not go over it in pen because you might see it through the paint later. But for our case, I want y'all to be able to see what I've done. Okay, so the first thing we did was we found kind of the center point of our canvas, and we wanted to know where does that center point position on top of our chapel. It's about right there. And the first line I wanted to draw was this one to help me figure out where it's going to go here. So the center point of our canvas is right here. The first line I'm going to draw is this one. Remember? This nice long, there we go. And now I'm going to draw our main rectangle shape right here, the shorter one. Again, it can be real messy because you're doing it in pencil. I'm doing it in pen just so y'all can see. So there's our main rectangle right there. Now I'm going to do our skinny rectangle. It's going to live over here. Cool. And then we can't forget these little details. I'm going to go ahead and put in our big window here, the window down here, and the window down here. I'll go ahead and do our triangle shape at the top, as well as the nice big stained glass window. And then the door. That was kind of the tricky part earlier, is the door does not go on our horizon line right here. Instead, we put 3 steps, 1, 2, 3, and then the doors go on top of those steps. And then we put this arch, I forgot, up here is another stained glass window above our doors. And then we encase all of that content into this little arch. And there you have it. We will work out the details of these pieces with the paint later. Now to draw a tree, we'll go ahead and place our tree here. I'm going to start by drawing this glob. It's very cloud-like, my tree here and here. So it does go on top of the building. I'm just going to draw a nice squiggly, cloudy looking oval. It's not much a circle, it's not much an oval, it's in between. And another one over here. Now to draw the tree trunks, if you notice, there's one main trunk, right? And it kind of curves to the side. And then it has these sister trunks that come out from each side. So the first thing I want to draw is my main trunk, then some sister trunks on the main trunk. We're going to do that again over here. So the main trunk, oh, there's my dog. I wonder what he's barking at. This trunk, and that one, and that one. I'm going to do it one more time on the back of my canvas so that you can see. You want to draw your tree, and then one main trunk, then a sister trunk, and some baby trunks too. We'll call those baby branches, baby branches. Okay, now the fun part. We're going to paint our chapel. I am going to use a paintbrush that is straight at the top, squared, rather than like these curved ones, because I use this to create a texture that resembles stone. I'm going to do this kind of movement up and down with my two paint colors. So let me tell you what two paint colors I'm using. We are going to do white, yellow ochre, and burnt sienna. So here's our burnt sienna, yellow ochre, and white. Go ahead and put these three colors on our paint palette. This time you won't need as much paint because you're not painting on a dry canvas. You're painting on a canvas that has already been painted. So the paint should apply a bit easier. Okay. So I'm going to take a little bit of my lighter color, and again, this is completely up to you of how much of whatever color you want to use. If you want to use a different color that you have in your library of colors, go right on ahead. So I have this nice glob really of paint on my paintbrush, and I'm going to take my paintbrush and just start applying paint on a big section. And I'm going to paint like right on top of those windows, because I can come back later and paint on top the blue. When I paint, I like to paint big. I like to use the entire space that I'm concentrating on. For example, this chapel. I'm going to start in this area for now. Then I'm going to move down here for a little bit. So I'm going to get some different color and move down here. I'm going to also just paint right on top of my tree. So that way I know for a fact I am covering the entire building. So if you notice, I'm going up and down with my paintbrush. I'm not smearing the paint on. I'm going up and down to create that texture that I absolutely find completely delicious. So you notice that I'm working the entire canvas. I'm not just staying in one spot. I'm moving around, because if I were to start up here and continue down, my style is going to change by the time I went from here to there, and my eye is automatically going to see the motion that I went through. Now that I'm hopping around to different spots on my chapel, my eye is just going to move around with all the different texture. I think I want to add a little bit more yellow in this area. In my opinion, the chapel is more of that yellow color than the darker brown, but I like to add the darker brown because it adds that shadow. And some of those stones, you know, they kind of accumulate that worn dirt look. Now right here, I'm noticing that I've mixed my colors onto my canvas too much. I'm going to leave that alone. I'm going to come over to this spot over here, get some more paint, and start in this spot and let that dry a little bit, because I can always put more paint on top. But for now, I just mixed it way too much on the canvas and I lost all my texture. So I'll just let it dry for a little bit and come back later. It's really messy. I feel like the messier the better. I love messy lines, which we'll get into later when we're doing some of the detail work. But if you want to keep your lines cleaner, by all means, do what makes you happy. I'm going to grab a little bit more of this darker for the stairs because they're kind of in the shadow a little bit. I'm going to come up here and just try to add a little bit of texture. Oh, there we go. I like that. I'll leave it alone now. I don't want to overwork what I just did. Okay, so keep working on your bricks. We're gonna check in on our painting pirate friends. We'll be right back.
Hey, how's your brick going? You doing your brick?
Yeah, my brick is awesome.
My brick is...
No, mine's better.
Ooh, let me see yours.
No.
No.
Cup it.
Ah, Joe, no, I gotta get some ideas to brick.
My bricks, up to the bricks.
There we go. Brick
Did you get your
road.
sky right?
Beautiful.
Oh, no, mine's lovely. I'm
Well,
not
it's a
kidding you, mine's
Picasso.
lovely.
It's a-
You wanna see my
That'd
sky?
kind of be cool.
You wanna see my sky? Come
Oh,
on.
yeah, you sky way.
Come on.
You sure? Yeah.
As if I'm back off. No. Captain, what's the next step? I got my beats done. And my accent keeps changing.
And you think yours is better than mine?
Oh, I've got no doubt.
Oh, man.
No doubt.
We gotta see what's next.
You've got no
Whoa,
doubt.
we gotta get more direction.
Yes. The brick's done. Let's find out from the winch.
I think those pirates are well on their way to hosting next year's Painting with Pirates party. Remember, if you have any questions about your painting, just send it over in the comments and I'll be happy to answer them. We're going to keep working on our stones for a little bit longer. I am just going to paint right over my door. Add a little bit darker since it is in shadow, but not too dark. Can always add more paint on top if I need to. I like that. I'm just gonna clean up the edges of my building and then I'm gonna call it. I like the texture that I've created and I don't want to overwork the painting. Because after this, we're gonna do the windows, and then after the windows, we are going to add detail on top. I mean, right now it should just look like a blob of paint because we haven't put any of the detail on top, including, if you take a quick look, all these darker lines to create the shape of our chapel. We haven't added those yet. So really right now you should only have just the blob of stone that makes up the chapel. I'm just gonna add a few more globs of paint in a few areas and then call it. Okay, while that dries, I'm gonna go ahead and do our sidewalk down here. And all I used for this sidewalk is white and black. I'm gonna move this over a little bit so you can see more of my, there we go. It's a little bit of black, a little bit of white. And take my, and again, I love texture. So I'm really just gonna slap that paint on. Don't forget your edges. Now that I'm looking at it, I see that my black and my white mixed up a little too much to make gray. So I'm just gonna add a little bit more white to my paint palette. Add a few globs of this white. I'm probably gonna do the same thing with my black. Do you see how much paint? I mean, I'm kind of, sometimes I even scoop my paint like a spoon, and then I just lay that paint right on. Oh, do you see that texture that was just created right there? It's just, I love it. So sometimes I'll, if you watch, see how I have this big glob of paint on my paintbrush? I'll just drag it on its edge like that. And then the paintbrush kind of glides on the texture of the canvas. And then all the paint just kind of, you know, lays itself down. Barely any work on my side. Let the paintbrush do its job. Okay, I love that. It's kind of snowy a little bit. I think actually this time, with this one I added a lot of black because I loved the shadow that it was creating on the floor or the ground. This one, it is kind of different. There's like globs of snow down there, it kind of looks like, which makes sense because this year we had a lot of snow. So I think I'm going to keep it that way. Okay, our next step after you finish the ground is the trees. So work just a little bit longer on the ground, and I'm going to prep for our trees. Okay, for our trees, we're going to use phthalo green, white, and black. So I'll make my globs. And the trees are very, very small, so I'm not using much paint at all. Okay, a word of warning, a word of caution. When it comes to painting trees, they can get away from you. For example, this one time I was painting a tree and I started in the middle and then I kind of went out, made this side real nice and big and bushy. And then I went to go do it to the other side in order to make it balanced. And it was, in that painting, it was going to cover up so much valuable detail. So with trees, start in the middle and take a minute and then kind of work around that middle part and then take a minute and then work around that little part and then look. So take it very slowly. It's okay to go slow on this tree because it's very small and we don't want it to take over all of this beautiful texture that we have already worked on. So I'm going to start with white and I'm going to add a little bit of white in the middle. I like that. It's very globby. I put a lot of paint in that middle. I'm going to pick up just a little bit of green and kind of mix it within my white. Now I don't want to mix it too much because I want to be able to see that white, especially since my ground is kind of looking like snow. I might actually keep it a little bit more white than I did in the other one. And then very slowly, you're just moving this paint around into the shape of the tree that you want. Now I'm noticing that the paint on my paintbrush has turned green because I've mixed it on my canvas. So I'm going to go ahead and rinse off my paintbrush. Get some more white so that I'm not mixing it all into one color. I want my colors to stay very separate. Now down here at the bottom of the tree, there's quite a bit of shadow. So that's where the black comes in, where I can create a darker tree down in the bottom, down there. The great thing about this little tree lesson is we're going to do it all over again on the other side. I'll do the tree trunk with black. Now, acrylic can be really fidgety when it comes to really thin lines. Use the smallest brush that you have. If you need to add a little bit of water to your paint to help it smooth, go on the canvas more smoothly, you can add just a tiny itty bitty bit of water to your paint to make it apply a bit more smooth onto your canvas. All right, so let's do the tree on the other side. We start with white and just dab it. Well, dab, I guess I mean glob it right there in the middle. Then grab some green and kind of move the green with the white around so that you create your leaves. I think I'm gonna, oh, there's white right there. And again, I'm not painting the way you paint the wall in your house. I'm just using the paintbrush to move back and forth the paint that's on my canvas. Try to do what feels natural to you too, because everyone has a natural, different like handwriting. Font, everyone has their own little special font. So just find your font in painting. What's your painting font? Okay, one more time. Remember, when you're going to do your branches, if your black paint is just too thick, add a little bit of water to it so that it'll apply nice and smooth. So just remember, if your black paint's a little too thick, just add a bit of water so you have a smoother paint to apply on your canvas. I need to add a little bit more black to the bottom of my tree, like that. Nice. I think I'm gonna add just a little bit more darker green up here. Oh yeah, there we go. Cool. Cool.
No, I'm so worried. I don't know what I'm doing.
Oh, matey, just a minute. Let's watch. It's coming to life. Wait.
Mine's still better.
Oh. Oh gosh. What did I do? Oh.
Captain, you're a mess.
It's beautiful. Oh, I'm so proud. I've never felt better.
Oh, well, you've never looked better.
Perfect.
Colorful character. That's
Oh
yours.
man.
Yeah. I think we need to find out what the next step is, because I'm a little.
Good plan. Good plan.
I'm a little stymied. I gotta tell you, this is really messing with my head.
Well, it's already messed with my head.
Oh, it's
My
a
face.
mess.
It feels cool. Last time I took a dip in the sea. All
You're gonna
right.
need some lye soap and maybe
We're gonna
a
need
basic-
something. A little
Yeah.
shark bait. Hey, let's go back and see what Rachel has to offer us. Direct us.
The winch! The winch is back!
Wow. What a mess they have made, but at least they're having a good time with it. Okay, our next step is going to be painting in our windows. And I can still see right about where they were located. I think there's one down here, the big one, that big space right there. And then, oh, you know what? That was sky. That's not a window. That's okay. We'll go on top of it with blue and white. Not to worry. And then there's a window here and a window here. Okay, so for the windows, I'm going to use my, I think I'm going to use that same brush. It was the number 8 squared off brush. I'm going to use that same one, and I'm going to use, let's see. I'm still using the same, the phthalo blue. But in this instance, I'm going to use more blue than I did for the sky. And I'll probably add just a little bit of green to it to give it kind of a sea green look. but you can keep it dark blue if you'd like. I'm just gonna, all right, so we're gonna start on the windows. There's one here, there's one here, here, and here. And I realized that I painted the, the sky where it should have been a hole right there. That's not a window, but that's okay. We can just paint right on top of there. So let's go ahead and paint our windows. I'm gonna use the phthalo blue as well as some green, just to give it kind of a fun sea green look with some smudgy details in there. And I'm using the number 8 brush, the one that has the squared end. And I'm just gonna start applying my paint into, yeah. Let's add some white in there too. I realized that that blue and that green, they're so dark that it would be hard to create any fun, you know, shines onto the window. This is actually one of my favorite parts of the painting because you can take a smaller brush and just create a little few lines here and there, and then to show that there might just be some detail on that stained glass. I'm gonna get some more of that darker paint. It's getting a little too light for me. I don't want it to just blend right into the sky. I want there to be a difference between them. I'm just gonna smudge paint around into my window areas. Let's get it down here at the bottom. See, I'm working my window big. I didn't just go from here all the way down. I stopped myself and I came to the bottom to work down here a little bit. I prefer working with a more sticky paint, but if you want to add a little bit of water to your paint to make a more smooth effect, go right on ahead. Just test it out and see what you like your paint texture to be, whether real sticky and thick, or do you want your paint to have more water texture to it? I like that. I like there, that's heading. Cool. Remember, you can ask me any question in the comments. As long as you're attending the live session, I realize that this is going to be recorded as well. If you need a break from painting, you can write in the comments, what was your favorite memory from your years at Southwestern? Okay, I have finished the first window and I'm a little happy with it. I'm not happy with this bottom line. I want it to be just a little bit more straight. So I'm just gonna grab some more paint. I'll tell you, one of my faults every time is my lines just always, I always have to check myself with the straight edges of whatever I'm working with. I always have to make sure that my lines aren't too widgy or too diagonal where it makes it comical, because if I were to just draw a line naturally, it would be slanted. It would be. It's really hard to draw a straight line for me. No matter how hard I practice. Okay, I'm gonna grab some more paint. I'm gonna do our little tiny windows right here. This is another one of those moments where you can really let the window get away from you. So just work small, start in the middle and make a small window. And then I look at that window and I think it could be a little bit bigger. So I'm gonna go ahead and bring in some more paint. I'm gonna straighten out our corners right there. Yep. And there. Yep. And then the nature of mixing paint on your canvas, it all just turned into one blue blob. So I'm going to bring in some white down there. I'm going to get some dark blue and bring it in there and smudge it around. I'm much happier with the smudge of texture there. And then we'll do it again on this window down here. Happy with that. There's one more window above our door, right? I can still see my lines. If you cannot see your lines anymore, no worries. Just take a minute, take a break, and redraw it in, unless you want to do it by hand, do it by memory or by eye. You certainly don't have to draw it out if you know kind of where it was placed and you know the shape. Okay, while those windows dry, I'm going to fix my big old mistake that I made in this area. This should be, oh, you know what? Look at that. I thought my paint was already dry. So sometimes you get really lucky and your paint's still kind of wet because you put it on really thick. And so some of my paint's actually coming off when I put water on it. Ooh, buddy. But I'll still need to apply some blue on top of there. So let's get some of our, you know what, all this blue is kind of messy with that green, so I'll go ahead and make a new puddle of blue. Blue puddle. And I already have white, so I won't worry with that. So I'm gonna put some, ooh, some green got on that white. Nope, I have to make a new white puddle. We'll just keep it right here with the blue. I'll probably need it for our line work later. Add some white. Then we'll add blue in there. I'm happy with that. Later, we're going to add these dark lines that will help shape that a bit better. I'm gonna add some dark brown down here to our door. And again, this is not, I'm not taking a ruler to measure out the door to make sure it's perfect. This is just adding a bit of paint to separate the door from the stone. And that's, it's all one color right now, which makes sense because I dipped it into one brown color. So I'm gonna go over and grab some of my yellow and dabble it in there, and also get some of our black and dabble it in there as well. That's much nicer than just the one color. I also lost my steps a little bit, so I'll just get some more brown and bring our steps back in. That's better. Okay, I'm happy with where this is going. We just have 2 steps left, but they really are the most important steps. And that includes these lines that are done with a dark brown, and then these lines that are done with white. So we're going to do the dark brown lines first. And what I want you to keep in mind is you're going to use the tiniest brush that you have. If you're using the paintbrushes that were in the Amazon link, it's number 6. If you use a very small brush, you're just going to use the tip of the brush. And it is your choice. You can either do nice clean lines and outline your chapel, or you can do messy lines like I've done. When you use messy lines, it brings some movement to your painting. When you do real thin straight lines, it'll make it look more illustrated. The trick to doing these messy lines is kind of giving your hand a little shake. Like you let your natural shake, you know, if you've had a lot of coffee, it shouldn't be hard for you. But you let your natural shake just kind of take over. You know, you start with a little bit of a thin line, and then you just kind of shake it around, and then you bring it back home. So over here, you start with a straight line, and you kind of bring a thicker line, you push harder on your paintbrush, and then a thicker line shows up, and then you let that natural shake come back. So I'm going to show you on a few spots on our canvas here. If you just want to watch for a little while, we're going to concentrate on this wall right here. And I'm using burnt sienna. Where's our burnt? Oh, wait a minute. Yeah, burnt sienna with black. So burnt sienna. And I have some black there, but I'm gonna refill it just a little bit because I want to make sure I have enough paint on my paintbrush. So I'm just gonna grab some brown, grab some black, mix it up a little bit, and I'm happy with that. There we go. Okay. So I'm gonna outline this outside of our chapel first. I'm gonna start right here in the middle. Yeah, I'm going to start with this one right here. And you kind of, like I said, you just let your hand do what it wants to do. So I want to bring in a nice thicker line right here. And then I'm going to let it go a little bit. And then here we go with our little squiggly. I'm happy with that. Let's keep going. I'm going to bring in some more, a straighter line down here. Maybe a few horizontal little smudges right there to bring in that there are horizontal lines within our chapel. Just a hint. Okay, up here, I'm gonna just ever so gently bring the brush onto the canvas to create the thinnest of lines. And then I want some squiggle right here. So there's a lot of detail happening up here that we aren't necessarily putting every little piece of detail down. However, to give the message that there's a lot of detail up here, I'm just going to take the very tip of my paintbrush and just kind of dabble it on top of there. I'm very happy with how that worked out. Okay. Let's move to this spot right here. If you look on the painting I did before, there is this little detail right here that was pretty significant in the actual chapel. So I'm just going to bring in, and it's the shape of a rectangle. However, we're not just going to fill in a rectangle right there. We're just going to drag our paintbrush to resemble a rectangle right at the top, right up there. So here we go. We're just going to drag the very tip of our paintbrush, and I am just letting the paintbrush do what the paintbrush wants to do. I'm happy with that. Okay. the thing that we did over here, we're going to do on this side as well. So I'm just going to let the tip of my paintbrush do all the work, and I'm going to bring in that natural shake of my hand and just wiggle it around there. Oh yeah. Now I'm feeling like I just want to keep going down, so I'm going to. I'm going to make that part real nice and thick, and then I'm going to wiggle it down, and now I'm going to stop. I'm going to go ahead and stop right there because I really love the shadow that has been created right there. And I don't want to continue it down. Instead, I want to work my whole canvas, and I want to jump on the other side over here. Now, this is another outside wall, so I want to make this line that I do over here nice, pretty thick. I mean, not like, not super thick, but one of the thicker lines that we are going to do. So I'm just going to lay gently the paintbrush right here, give a little wiggle. Maybe a few little side-by-sides, and then down into our tree. And we're just going to keep moving around the canvas. I'm going to come down here and bring some grounding down. Down here is one of the darkest shadows where the ground meets the building. So I am going to get just a little bit more black on my paintbrush. Add a little bit of black down there. Okay, I'm happy with that. I'm going to come into this section right here and frame out our window. Again, down here I'm going to make a nice thick line and bring in some wiggles going up. My window turned out pretty dark, which I love it, but the darker outline isn't going to do as much magic as later we're going to do our white highlight. That's going to do the magic, I think. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and work on the triangle now, just ever so gently, working our outlines. I'll come back down here and finish this little outline because these are two separate buildings. Let's put something here to mark that edge. I come in here. I'm going to go ahead and rinse off my paintbrush. My paint is starting to get thicker because it's starting to dry on my paint palette. So I am going to add a little bit of water to my paint now because it is starting to get a little thicker. Oh, actually, let's go ahead and finish. Let's bring in a line right there, and then I'm going to call it. I just did a quick swipe of my paintbrush right there, and now I'm done. I'm actually going to do the same thing down here where I put my paintbrush down and I swipe it across, and now I'm done. And then I'm just going to ever so gently drag down to frame it. I'll go ahead and frame these two. Not the entire window, just a hint of a frame. There's an arch over our door. If you see here, there's the arch right here. We're going to bring that in. I'll frame out this window here, and this one. I'm happy with that. So the last thing that we do need to apply, there are these pillars that kind of come out of the stonework right here, and also here and here, but these are much significantly smaller than these. So I don't want to just put a line all the way up, a little triangle here, and then a line all the way down. Instead, I'm going to apply a little triangle shape right there, and then another one over here. And then very gently graze my paintbrush all the way down, hitting just a few spots. Yep, I'm happy with that. Graze the paintbrush all the way down in just a few spots. And then we're also going to do that too over here. However, these are much smaller, so that's just hints. That's basically all I'm going to do there. The last step is going to be our highlights, and all we need for that is white. And that is what's really going to make the painting pop and add a bit more structure. All you need is white and your tiniest paintbrush. And I'm going to get my globs. You can start this with the brown paint still being wet. That's okay. I'm going to start over here, and these are our highlights that we're adding. So we're going to add a highlight here. Oh yeah, nice glob there. I'm going to come down. And wherever we have light hitting our building, we are going to add white. So right here with the door, I had lost the rectangle shape in this corner. So I just took white and made a sharp edge of light hitting that door. And now my eye says, oh, okay, this is a sharp edge of a door. I get it. And I'm going to do the same thing with my stairs, where I'm just going to bring this small itty bitty bit of highlight onto my stairs with 3 lines going with the horizon like that, to bring my eye's attention to, oh, there's stairs there. Let's start working up here with some highlights. Again, I'm letting the shake of my hand kind of guide my wiggle technique. I'm just going to add a few highlights on to my chapel because some of my stones are, you know, catching the highlights of our sun. And then I'll add in some little highlights into our windows. And I think I forgot one part of our window here. I'm going to take black and create just a little bit of this window pane look right there. Oops. I want this to look like it's a bit more in the shadows. So I'm going to get some water into my brown paint. Just bring a little bit of shadow inside. Mostly water. I'm using a lot of water right now to kind of create a wash with my paint. And that's it. You can play around with where you want your highlights to be. Now I'm loving the motion. I think it's because I was talking and painting at the same time. I was bringing a lot of energy into the class. And so I think that shows in this painting. This painting I did in a very quiet atmosphere. My son had fallen asleep. It was nap time. The house was very silent, and I had nice, comfortable music on, and I was able to produce this piece. And with this one, while talking to you guys, I mean, you can just see the difference of how different they each look, which is funny. Thanks for joining us today. It was so much fun teaching you how to paint the chapel. Before you go, I want to let you know that on my website, which you'll find here, I have 2 Southwestern prints, which you'll find here, available for sale. Profits from these will go back to the Southwestern Emergency Fund. Now to sign us off, let's go back and see what our pirate friends are doing.
Captain, I'm done. I feel good.
I do too.
No, mine's gonna hang in the Louvre. I'm not kidding. They're gonna move the Mona Lisa for this one. They are.
You walk the plank if it's not better.
No,
Yeah.
I'm telling you, I'm ready. Are you ready? I painted what I know.
Well,
Did
let
you
me.
paint?
I painted what I know.
Well, I'll tell you what I know.
Well, let's see what you know.
Okay. Ready? 1.
Yeah.
Okay, you say 2.
2.
Do you know 2 comes after 1?
Yeah, 3, 2.
Okay, we'll go to 4. I
Ready?
painted.
The sea.
Oh! You copied me!
And you copied me.
No.
This is all I know. And
No.
you too.
You know a cat? What's with the face? That's a cat with his ears detached.
It's a live sea.
No.
With the waves.
No.
And all the
No, the
ocean
sea.
around.
No, the sea. This is
It
it.
looks like a cat.
This is the best.
Nah.
No, mine's not a cat. Yours is a cat.
Yours. Happy
Okay,
homecoming.
to Southwestern University. We love our local university. You guys rock. And you
Go
graduated from there.
Pirates!
Go Pirates!